Mental illness is bad. I don't think I have to say that. It's something everybody should know, yet there are a select few groups of people like teachers, parents, and politicians that believe mental illness not to be an issue, or at least not a widespread one.
How we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
Instead of examining people and trying to help them, these groups would rather just blame other people in the world around us. They love to blame books, music, movies, and of course, video games. Yeah, we're talking about what is considered to be one of the most violent video games of all time, Hotline Miami. This video will be discussing what Hotline Miami has to say about mental illness and how people react to it. Originally, this video was just going to be a recap of the story and what I feel like it says, but after rereading the script, I realized it was super boring and also repetitive, so I decided to just go through some bits of the story and describe the many mental instabilities of the characters. So let's start out with our main man, Jacket. Jacket was a soldier during the Hawaii conflict where he would be a part of a special forces team named Ghost Wolves that consisted of 4 people. While being a part of this team, Jacket would be tasked with killing people and going into these incredibly stressful situations, culminating in him witnessing the death of 3 of his teammates during his last mission, and almost ending up on death's door himself. He would make it out alive thanks to his now best friend, Beard. After the war, Jacket would do his best to fit back into society until the Hawaii conflict ended with the San Francisco bombing, where Jacket's best friend, Beard, would meet his end. After this, Jacket would become incredibly violent and malicious because of his mental health, but also because of the small speckle of propaganda he had been fed by the nationalist group 50 Blessings. In his killings, Jacket would prove himself to be a violent, conflicted man, but also a schizophrenic. In his fight with the character of Biker, through Jacket's eyes we see him kill Biker in cold blood, yet later on is proven to have not died. He also imagines dead people are coming back to life and talking to him, haunting him. It seems Jacket might have a personality disorder of sorts as well. Unlike Biker or any of the other characters in Hotline Miami, Jacket doesn't have much of a personality. All we really do know about him is that he hates Russians and he smokes. Later on in the game, after witnessing him kill so many people, he breaks at points. He kills the homeless man and feels disgusted and ashamed. He lets Richard live after Richard killed Jacket's girlfriend and almost killed him as well. All things that don't align with the Jacket we play as in the game. With his other symptoms of mania, I'd say it's safe to say Jacket has some sort of personality disorder as well. All of this comes together in the final scene in which Jacket kills who he believes to contribute to the problem, the leader of the Russian mafia. Jacket gets the closest thing he can to closure in doing this, and he seems to be more at peace. Not in the normal way of, oh, I accomplished a goal I had, but in the way of feeling nothing. Speaking from my own experience with mental health disorders, after I accomplish something during an episode, whether it be good or bad, I tend to feel pretty empty afterwards, as if I have done nothing whatsoever. Even though I had. It isn't a good thing to feel. Not at all. But in a strange fucked up type of way at points, it's really calming. Call it self-projecting, but in the final few scenes we get of Jacket of him smoking, I see a bit of myself in him. That part of me that feels calm when I'm empty. Jacket is not an innocent man. He is a horrible, violent, disgusting person. But he's still a person with emotions. A person who did the things he did because of his trauma and mental illness. He's the opposite of just a guy who got angry and decided to do something he saw in a movie. He had real motives, real feelings, but none of this is brought up by the public. His story is used to make profit and scare people. It's dumbed down to a simple tale of an insane man hurting people. They blame his actions on simple little things like hating Russians or just being crazy. This is emphasized by the main characters of Hotline Miami 2, and the secondary main character of Hotline Miami 1, the people who came after Jacket, the stereotypes of an insane person. In Hotline Miami 1, the secondary main character of Biker is a violent drug addict who does everything he does mostly for fun. He eventually realizes 50 Blessings is up to something big and bad, but he does nothing. He doesn't do anything because he's pathetic. He got scared and went into hiding. He quit fighting after his encounter with Richard. He kills people just because, and he has no empathy for others. He's the basic modern-day stereotypical societal conception of a psychopath. He has no motive besides he just does what he wants to do. We as people have a habit of generalizing groups of people and forget that there are very valid and explainable reasons as to why people are the way they are. Even psychopaths. Biker doesn't have a motive, just a pure psycho. Which is kind of funny because he's the only character in the series who has no reason to be insane. And I don't mean a valid reason, I mean a reason in general. Come on, Biker is just a worthless druggie, right? That's what I think the game is trying to make us think, and I'm pretty sure a good chunk of that is true. But, even with all that in mind, it's still wrong of us to generalize people like Biker. He is still a human after all, a human with emotions and a consciousness. While not canon, in the true ending of Hotline Miami 1, you can see Biker's disgust for nationalism and threatening others into hurting people. He might not have a reason for going along with the propaganda, but his escape from it and his actual beliefs say a lot more about him and how we view him. Hotline Miami 2 introduces a plethora of new characters, all of which have their own shallow reasons for their actions, which in a way is worse than Biker. Starting with the fans, like Jacket, they're also veterans from the Hawaii conflict. They view Jacket as an idol and want their own 15 seconds of fame, so they proceed to try and recreate the events of the first Hotline Miami. This fails and leads to every single one of their deaths. They die for nothing and don't even receive that much attention for their hollow crimes. And unlike Jacket, who had a connection to the San Francisco bombing and how it killed his best friend, the fans don't have one. They just want to hurt people. They just want to get famous. The thing about copycat killers is that they never really accomplish as much as the original, and that's the true irony of the fans' death. They failed. Jake is just a racist nationalist. Like, I really can't say much about him that isn't self-explanatory. But yeah, this fat fuck is a Confederate. I don't know what else to say, really. Like, yeah, he's stupid, and I hate him. And he's the type of person to let mental illness just slide, but besides that, he really doesn't contribute to much. Manny Pardo is a detective who's also looking for his own 15 seconds of fame. He commits horrific murders and is later called in to investigate them. Kind of like a self-report system, like Among Us. This comes to a close with Manny having a manic meltdown and hiding in his home until the bomb drops. Nobody cared about Manny's crimes and this angered him. He wanted the attention. The fans were envious, Manny was jealous. Evan Wright and Martin Brown aren't inherently violent people, but are people on the outside who don't help any with issues like these. They contribute to the panic, the overglorification, and in all honesty use events like Jacket's crimes as an excuse to bury themselves in their work or make things about them. Something new this game tries is giving the villains of the previous game more character and reason for doing what they do. The villains have more of a valid reason for hurting people than most of the protagonists introduced in Hotline Miami 2. Richter, for example, is revealed to be the polar opposite of both Jacket and Biker. He's really just a shut-in who only hurts people because he's essentially forced to. He doesn't do it because he likes it or because of his mental state. The son of the mafia boss feels like he needs to continue and improve upon his father's legacy, and this pressure leads to him overdosing and falling to his death. The henchman's acts of good would also bring an end to his life. At the end of the original Hotline Miami, before killing him, the grandfather of the mafia says that nothing seems to matter anymore. This sentiment is practically the main theme of Hotline Miami 2. It's essentially repeated multiple times by Richard, someone who is most likely a supernatural being, most likely the embodiment of death. In my life, I've heard many of my friends who suffer from mental illness say that nothing matters and that there's no point to any of this. But that just isn't the right way to think about it. Hotline Miami 2 ends with Richter relaxing with his mother before the world ends. Richter knew this was coming and was ready. Did he know the world was going to end? I don't think so, but he did know things would someday catch up with him. Before the world ends, Richard makes one last final appearance to chat with Richter, and he says something that still sticks with me. Something bone-chilling. Something so sad, so dreadful and dark, but something that fills me with a bit of calm, a bit of hope. Leaving this world isn't as scary as it sounds. It's an incredibly simple statement that packs such a painful punch. Looking at it from the outside, it's just an incredibly sad but fair viewpoint on death. The world is violent, we as people do horrific things, and they do horrific things in return. It hurts to hear, but you can't argue against it. But from my viewpoint, it's a bit more personal. A very painful symptom of depression and other mental illnesses is actively wanting to die or just waiting for it to happen. It's a lot like feeling numb. Bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depression, and so many other disorders can and usually do contribute to this. It's a lot like living life on autopilot. Now, I can only speak on depression and bipolar disorder since besides anxiety, that's all I've been diagnosed with. When putting myself in Richter and Richard's shoes, I get it. Hell, even in my normal, non-video game life, I get it. I get it so fucking much. I swear I'm not trying to turn this into a literally me Sigma male moment, but God, man, it just hits. And in that final moment after those words, when the bomb drops and everything ends, I feel sympathy. Not everyone in this story is a bad person. Even the people who do really fucked up shit. Except Jake. I don't like filthy fucking Confederates. The pain these broken characters go through and how it's presented is just fantastic. Underneath the game's graphic violence is a beautiful tale of how mental illness is treated like a joke, used as a tool so others can morph the world's view of art, games, and movies, and even people for the worse. Hotline Miami is about Jacket and his crimes, an army veteran not given the mental help he needs, a man who liked hurting other people, but even in his darkest moments, still had a heart. Hotline Miami is about mental illness and the downward spiral it creates. It's about the downward spiral of our actions, of our violent outlook. But unlike the characters of Hotline Miami, we still have time to make things better. We have time to help those in need, those who need help mentally. We have the power to take PTSD and other mental illnesses seriously. We have the ability to help others. So maybe the world is fucked. Maybe none of this does matter. But it doesn't change the fact that we can do better. And we could all be just a little more caring, a little more kind. And this part, if you can't tell, wasn't in the script because my friend Marcy, who wanted me to add at the end about a bittersweet note about how we should take mental health more seriously and stuff. And I found that hard to write. And so I'm just saying what comes to my heart at the moment, that all of this could have been avoided in Hotline Miami. That the events of Hotline Miami would not have happened if just one person who had more power cared about the little guy who had none. And now back to the actual scripted part of this video. There will never be another game like Hotline Miami. Tons of games have been banned and tons more will be banned. Tons of games have been covered and frowned down upon by news outlets and journalists and parents and people who have more power. But no game has ever gone out of its way to prove them to be stupid in the same way Hotline Miami did. Video games will forever impact me, and a good game will leave me thinking about it months after playing. But no game will ever leave me with the same feeling of dread and sympathy that Hotline Miami did. I would go as far as to say that at least the story of Hotline Miami 1 and 2 altogether makes a masterpiece of a video game.